Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the Wisconsin DNR Warden Recruitment Information Session. My name is Sarah Hoy, and I'm the Communications Director for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Joining us this evening are DNR Warden Kara Kamke, Training Director for the DNR, and Lieutenant John Sinclair. Following this evening's presentation, we will have time for a few questions. And with that, Kara, over to you.
Thanks much, Sarah. Thank you all for joining us here for this second webinar. If you haven't tuned into the first one, it is on YouTube. Feel free to go over to that one. This webinar is specifically going to be oriented towards the hiring and training process of conservation wardens. So just give you a little background. My name is Kara Kamke. I am the training and hiring section chief for our division here at the Division of Public Safety and Resource Protection at the DNR. So without further ado, we are going to kick it off. Well, let me back up and say I'm also joined here tonight by John Sinclair. He is Lieutenant Conservation Warden down in our South Central region, and he's also chair of our recruitment committee. So between the two of us, we're hopeful to provide you with a ton of information to prepare you for your potential application in our conservation warden process. So with that, we'll get started and start with a general overview of our hiring process. So as you can see on the screen, our hiring process takes several months. So we right now are anticipating that we will open our hiring process next week and keep it open for about 2 weeks time. I know that sometimes it's frustrating to not necessarily have an exact date of when that process will be open, but I appreciate your patience with us while we work through a new WisJobs software. So if you've ever applied for a state government position or job, you went to WisJobs, the website, to apply for that. And that website is kind of getting a revamp. So everything's going to maybe look a little differently. And we're working through that this week. So bear with us. As soon as we have that announcement out there and the posting is live, if you are a subscriber to our conservation warden newsletters, hiring process and recruitment newsletters, you'll get a notification that we've launched the process. So this is a note that if you're not a subscriber to that, instead of checking back every day, you can either go to our website and type in Warden Recruitment and then subscribe in the middle of the page. You can also subscribe through WisJobs to get notifications as well. So we plan to have the hiring process open in April, and I'll go over a little bit more about some of the minimum qualifications and what that looks like in the next few slides. But first, I'm just going to touch on this overview. So once the application process closes, we will then rate all the applications. And after that rating is conducted, we will invite the successful, the successful candidates into the next phase of our process, which will be an initial interview. This will be a virtual style interview. And once again, I'll get into some more details on that further down in the presentation, but we'll have an initial interview. Once again, we'll kind of rate applicants based on that initial interview. And if you move on past that phase, you will be invited to our panel interview and our fitness assessments. So once again, this would be a larger interview panel, similar to how we've run it in years past, and I'll provide more information later in the presentation. If you are successful with the fitness assessment and the interview panel, then you move on to our background investigation phase. And those are generally conducted around August. After that, we review all of our backgrounds. We have a board that reviews them. And once again, we can get into some more of that later. But after we review all background investigations, then we submit or give people conditional job offers, and that occurs in about September. And then once conditional offers are made, there's a whole bunch of conditions that need to be met prior to an actual appointment letter being issued. And that appointment letter would have an onboarding date for late October. So it's a very long process. We understand that. But because we're hiring law enforcement officers, we need to do a really great job at making sure that we're getting really qualified applicants and doing our due justice to check backgrounds and everything like that. As far as conditional offers, I know I get this question a lot, and so I just kind of want to touch on it here. Conditional offers, generally speaking, are not going to well, in our job announcement, it's going to say that this is a statewide hire. So it is not going to be specifically for one station or another. It will be a statewide hire, and it is our hope, but not a guarantee, that when we issue a conditional job offer, that we will have kind of where you will be assigned as your permanent station at that time. There's a lot of moving parts in this, and we have to open processes and put them through lateral transfers before that can happen. I'm hopeful we can do it, but once again, it's not a guarantee. If we do not have a station assignment as part of a conditional job offer, it generally occurs within the first few months of employment as that permanent station. But this job will also, or this announcement will also be hiring for our limited term employment or part-time LTE conservation warden positions. And those positions will be station specific upon conditional offer. First day of employment is tentatively set for October 25th. So that's kind of an overview on the hiring process. The next, we're going to just talk about that initial step. So your initial application, once again, is going to be on WisJobs starting hopefully next week. And part of that is going to be a little bit of an update. So if you've ever applied for us in the past, it's going to look different than in past years. Previously, we've required a resume and cover letter. This year, we're going to do something a little bit differently, and we are going to ask for some written responses or short essay questions about your past experiences. On this initial application, we'll also ask you if you meet our minimum qualifications. And just as a reminder, I know these were touched on in the last webinar, but our minimum qualifications include the fact that you have to be 21 years old upon appointment, which once again is October 25th. So you have to be 21 on or before that date. You have to be able to have a valid Wisconsin driver's license. This doesn't mean you have to have a valid Wisconsin license right now. It just means you need to be able to obtain one. You also have to, you must not have any unpardoned felonies, criminal convictions, or any crimes that would be considered a felony if they occurred in Wisconsin. You also must not have any unpardoned domestic violence convictions. And those are in place because is a law enforcement position, you need to be able to possess a firearm. So you have to be not a felon and have no prior domestic violence convictions that are unpardoned. Lastly, part of the initial qualifications is you have to be able to drive our fleet vehicles. And per our fleet policy, you cannot have an OWI conviction within the past year, and you also cannot have more than 3 moving violation convictions or at-fault accidents within the past 2 years. So those will be some of the initial questions that are asked, and then you'll be able to move on to the step where we ask for these short essay responses. As mentioned in the last webinar as well, we no longer are going to be requiring upon application a minimum of 60 college credits. I know that was part of the process last year. This year we are, excuse me, this year we are changing our requirement so that you will be required to have 60 college credits within 5 years of employment, but there is not an education standard upon initial application. So if you have questions about what that looks like or how that would affect you, feel free to reach out to us as we will get to at the end of this presentation. Also, we will be hiring about 10 to 15 full-time positions with this recruitment process, and we'll also be hiring those part-time warden positions as well. So if you're interested in either full-time or part-time work, please apply in this announcement. And then just lastly, I know it says on the slide here, how to be successful in this initial step. Review the position description, which will be listed, linked to in the job announcement. Review our website. It has a ton of great information to where you can learn about the job, what we're looking for. So review that information, and then look at the minimally qualified information inside the job announcement as well. Really, this what we're going to be looking for is how are you connected to our mission? What ties you to our mission here at the Department of Natural Resources. As wardens, we need to have adequate communication skills. We're constantly talking to the public, whether that's in a positive or a negative setting. And so we're looking for people that have really great communication skills. And also, we also work with people from all walks of life. And so having some prior experience in those areas is going to be something for you to start thinking about while you are in preparation for applying with us. So lastly, the short answers, please review the job announcement because it will provide additional instructions about how to submit these short answer questions. They will be limited in length to 350 words, but the place where you put your answers into will not have a cutoff. So you will need to keep track of that on your own. I highly suggest you use a Word document or other a tool to word count your responses and save them so that you can work on them, spell check them, do all that sort of stuff before you enter them. But know that we are not grading on grammar or punctuation or anything like that. We're really looking just for your response to the answer. So that is some of the basics on the initial application.
Greetings, everyone. I'm John Sinclair. As I was introduced earlier, I'm part of our Conservation Warden team here at the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. And now we'll segue into some of the skills and abilities and sort of the background preparation that you might want to take into consideration and that you're going to want to be thinking about as you prepare to apply. So touching a little bit on what Kara just mentioned, there's some common themes that we see in successful warden applicants, and certainly that we see in successful conservation wardens that are out working for us around the state. And so there is no one defining feature or no one absolute quality that we're looking for. We're really looking for a really broad, diverse group of people to be part of our team, because we realize that we're smarter and we're stronger and we're more successful when we have people with different perspectives, different skills, and different life backgrounds. So don't ever think that your specific life background isn't the right fit, because there's a place for many, many different people within our agency. When we're thinking about some of those kind of core, traits, competencies, skills, and things along those lines, some of the things we're talking about that was mentioned earlier is those communication skills. We are regularly speaking to the public, talking to internal staff, working with partner agencies, nonprofits, community organizations, government entities. We're talking all the time. We're writing emails, we're drafting reports, we're giving presentations. We serve not just as law enforcement officers, but as ambassadors and as educators for the natural resources that we protect. And so communication is incredibly important, whether it's during an enforcement contact or a school presentation, or a casual introduction to someone who someday wants to become a warden just like us. So having those communication skills are really a core skill that we're looking for in a great candidate. Certainly also a willingness to serve everyone in the state of Wisconsin, whether that's the people that live here, the people that are here visiting. We work for everyone at the end of the day. Everyone needs clean air, clean water, clean land, healthy fish and wildlife populations, and they need to be able to feel safe when they're using our natural resources and recreating in the outdoors. So that's what we try to provide for the public. But to do that, we need to be comfortable and willing and proactive in serving everyone that engages in those activities. And so we want people with an open mind and a willingness to work with people that are different than themselves, and a level of comfortability in doing that. Obviously, the work we do is directly connected to people and natural resources. So how have you demonstrated that you have a passion for that type of work? Think about that. We want people that have a passion for this type of career. We don't hire people that just want a job in any job. We hire people that want to do this job. And so, some of the other things you're thinking about, when it comes to a law enforcement career, and certainly as a conservation warden, some of those competencies like honesty, integrity, self-motivation, self-confidence, and so on. A curiosity to constantly learning, because we deal with so many different scenarios. We enforce so many different regulations and laws. We're constantly learning. You're never going to feel like you are an expert at everything the DNR does throughout your conservation warden career. Every day is going to be a new challenge, a new opportunity to learn from other people, learn from your own research. And so we need people that have that eagerness and willingness to learn and improve themselves. And we certainly need people that kind of have those core traits that make them an upstanding person that can be trusted, that can be professional in all their communications, and that are, bring that self-motivation to really drive their work efforts to meet the needs of their communities and the needs of our department. So I touched on a few of those items. Our conservation our conservation wardens work fairly independently. We are part of a much larger team, not just of wardens, but of the entire DNR. There's about 2,500 to 3,000 full-time staff members at the DNR. And out of that group, about 225 are law enforcement officers that are conservation wardens. And so we are part of a much larger team, and you need to be willing to both work independently and work as part of that much larger team to solve problems and to serve the community. And so that ability to work as part of a team, but also that ability to work independently and kind of direct your own daily work activities is critical. We also work with the public, like was mentioned, in both, really positive scenarios and sometimes in enforcement scenarios or scenarios where people are not happy with what is going on. So we need wardens, applicants who are good at negotiation, who are good at listening to other people. We're not just here to tell other people what to do. We need to listen and learn from them as well and understand their experience and their perspective and their concerns. And then lastly, those problem solving skills. That might seem like a no-brainer, but we come across so many different scenarios that we have to work through. You really have to be an engaged and proactive problem solver to try and provide the best service to your community and to protect the natural resources. And then lastly, I touched on the eagerness to learn, but that's just critical. We provide you a lot of training. We'll touch on that in the presentation today, but we need people that are willing to seek self-improvement. So moving on to the next slide here, when we're talking, I just talked about some of those competencies. How do you gain those? How do you get that experience? How do you get some of those skills that we just talked about? Well, there's a lot of different ways you can do that, and that you probably have already done that. So we're talking about life and work experience, but that can mean a lot of different things. So I want all of you to be open-minded and to really think critically about what you've done in your time to prepare for this position. Even if at the time maybe you weren't thinking, oh, I'm doing this to prepare to become a conservation warden, that doesn't mean that experience isn't a great segue or didn't give you a great skill that's going to make you successful here. So when I think of some of the examples that have really made candidates competitive in our hiring process, I think about experience in volunteer activities, educating, teaching, leading organizations, just being a member of a community organization or a civic group or a public service organization. That could be through, a local club, a place of worship. It could be through a local nonprofit or your school, or for whatever, any other opportunities you might have come across, whether that just happened this past year or it happened 5 years ago. That's valuable experience that's given you some great skills, most likely. So be thinking about that. Think about what connects you to natural resources. Do you have any educational background with natural resources, whether it's in high school, in your personal time, in a college setting? All of that is valuable. There's lots of different ways people gain an appreciation for natural resources and a lot of different ways people learn about natural resources. So don't think you had to go to a certain school or you had to study a certain topic. There could be many different ways you gain experience and education in the natural resources realm. We're also looking for people with experience that have, people that have experience sharing their passion for natural resources. So like I mentioned earlier, we're ambassadors for kind of all things natural resources in Wisconsin. So what that means is I might need to help teach a young child how to, be safe when they are out ice fishing. I might need to talk to somebody who's out hiking on a state park trail and has questions about what trees they're looking at. And I didn't study forestry in college, so I don't profess to be an expert on all tree species. But what I'm telling you is, the more, experience you have in sharing your passion, the more or the better equipped you're going to be as a conservation warden to be that ambassador, to be that mentor and teacher to the public, because we hire people that are passionate about natural resources, but what we need to do is share that passion with the public so that they gain an appreciation and they understand the value as well. Experience serving, working, or engaging with diverse groups of people. I touched on this earlier, but have you gained experience in your personal life working with diverse groups of people, in your educational life, in your work life, through your volunteering? Could be through any number of ways that you've done that. But how have you worked with people that are different than you? That could mean lots of different things. They think differently than you. They're from a different socioeconomic background. They're a different race than you are. They're a different gender than you are, and so many other things. But think about how you've interacted with those people, how you've listened and learned and been successful in those types of settings, because we want to know about that as you work through our application and hiring process. Customer service is critical. I think sometimes people think customer service and law enforcement. What does that mean? Well, we, just like someone provides customer service at a store somewhere, as conservation wardens, we're providing customer service to both the people that live in and visit Wisconsin, and the natural resources are our customers as well, right? The wildlife, the fish, the plants. We work for people and resources at the end of the day. And so what experience do you bring to the table that shows that you can treat people fairly, you can work through problems, you can provide top quality customer service in a professional and calm and mature way? That could be at your local store that you worked at. It could be in a school setting. It could be in the work that you do. It could be in your personal life. How do you serve others? We want to understand and know about your customer service skills, because they're critical here at the DNR. What experience do you have working in teams? That could be in sports, on work projects. It could be in your schooling, whether it's in high school or college. Have you worked as part of teams, and how did you do that? Did you get good experience? Were you a productive member of that team, a contributing member? Did you seek consensus? Did you help build that team up rather than put up barriers? And so that team sort of mentality is critical, again, for our success. And then think about what experience you have being a mentor, being a teacher. And I don't mean that you have to be a grade school teacher at your local school system or in your local school system. I mean, have you taught your friends or family about different topics, about natural resources? Have you taught in an educational setting? Have you taught in your schooling? Have you had to teach new staff members at the place that you currently work at? Think about how you have gained experience teaching and mentoring others, because like I've said, we do that almost every day at the DNR. And we're always trying to help other people gain the passion and appreciation that we have. And certainly if you have education in a related topic, like in high school or in college, you studied topics that related to natural resources, related to law enforcement, related to communication, related to education and teaching, maybe sociology. There's any number of things that your educational background could bring to your application. So think critically. There's so many different skills that you need to be successful as a warden that there's no exact college course or high school course that I'm going to tell you needed to take to find success here, because that's just not the case. But we need you as applicants to think creatively and honestly about the skills that you've gained through whatever education you do have. We want to know about, we want to understand, not that you just took a class, but what you got out of it. Not that you just read a book, but what did you get out of it? How does your education relate to what we do? And then lastly, certainly if you have experience educating others about natural resource laws, enforcing natural resource laws, or investigating natural resource violations, we want to know about that too. Perhaps you have prior law enforcement experience or private security experience, or you've been a park ranger, you've been a customer service member in a natural resources setting, whatever it might be. Do you have experience that relates to natural resources, law enforcement, and education efforts? And so one thing I want to say here is this list is not comprehensive. Don't feel like you need to check every box and every sentence and every word to be successful in our hiring process. This is just kind of a page full of examples of things we want you to think about critically before you submit your application and before you get to our interview process, because the more prepared you can be, the more thoughtful you can be, the better off you're going to do in our process. So don't feel like if you lack one of these experiences in your personal life or in your work or your volunteering or your education, that's not going to necessarily be a roadblock for you. We just want to understand, regardless of where you got that experience, we want to understand what it's all about and what you bring to the table.
Thanks, John. Yeah, and I think everything that John talked about is really in to help you prepare for the initial application and also the interviews. And so after you submit your written responses to the initial application, once again, those are going to be reviewed in correlation with some benchmarks that we have. The top applicants are going to move on to our initial interview. This initial interview step is new to the process this year. It is a virtual style interview. We will provide you the information ahead of time. It's actually going to be a one-way interview, which is a new setup, but essentially we're going to provide you a question and a link to record your answer at. You're going to record your answer, and then once again, we're going to rate those according to the benchmarks that we have previously set up. So that's going to be the initial phase, or the initial interview. The second round interview, so once again, people who pass or rate high enough in the initial interview are going to move on to the second round interview and our fitness assessments, which are combined together. These have traditionally been in person, and crossing fingers, we can have them in person this year, but we have to make sure that we have all the COVID precautions in place. We are definitely not willing to get anybody sick over a hiring process. So whether they're in person or virtually, there will be a panel style interview where you're going to meet face to face or screen to screen with an interview panel, and they'll provide you questions ahead of time that you can prepare with, and then obviously interview once you sit in the chair, so to speak. So we do have 2 interviews in this process. I do want to just provide, take a few moments to provide some sort of tips and tricks, let's call them, to really what we're looking for. Give you some background. All of our steps in our process are rated against benchmarks. So we have a category of, okay, this is a more than acceptable response, this is an acceptable response, and this is a less than acceptable response. And those are all generated well ahead of time. And then your answers are rated by the panel to see where they fall on that spectrum. And so when you are answering questions, it may be different than how you've interviewed in the past. So it may be a little different than potential private sector interviews, but they're pretty structured. And because we interview so many people, we generally don't ask follow-up questions. So I know that's been something that's caught some applicants off guard, is the lack of maybe follow-up questions in interviews. But the reason we do that is because we don't want to provide an unfair advantage to you over other applicants. We need to make sure that we ask all the applicants the exact same questions. So we are going to provide, you set of questions. How much time you get them in advance is going to depend a little bit year to year. But traditionally we have provided, 20 plus minutes to review those questions ahead of time, simply because we want your best answers. We really do want your well thought out answers. And so something you can do to prepare for these interviews is honestly just practice interviewing. And it may sound goofy, it may sound silly, but sitting in front of your computer camera, sitting in front of the mirror, pulling in friends to help you do some mock interviews. It's really going to improve your interview skills if you can do that. Just pull off questions off the internet, good questions in a law enforcement interview or natural resource related interview. There's tons of examples out there. And I think you can probably even just hit on some of the basics, like, why should we hire you? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Things like that are very commonly asked, and maybe some things you should be thinking of ahead of time. So research some of those questions, prepare for some of those kind of easy or common questions ahead of time. And then also, as John was talking about, think critically about those core competencies we're looking for. What in your life and work experiences, your educational background has have you gained those core competencies? What experiences can you share with us to show us that you have those core competencies? Think about those examples, have a few kind of written down ahead of time that you can weave into the interview, because often we want to hear examples. That's how we know. It makes it really relatable, and it gives us a peek into who you are. It tells your story. So please prepare ahead of time, practice the interviews. Find some, examples in your life history that you have on the ready. And then lastly, time management is a huge piece of our interviews. We'll tell you ahead of time how much time you have. We'll provide the questions ahead of time, and you're the timekeeper of that interview. So utilize that time to make sure you answer all the questions in that allotted time. But also, if you have time at the end, feel free to go back and answer, add additional information, maybe do a little wrap up and conclusion paragraph, tell the panel a little bit about you. You can do that stuff. That is your time, and managing that time, and that comes with practice, is really going to be beneficial. So those would be the two things I often tell applicants who are unsuccessful and are looking for some tips and tricks. Those are the two biggest things I often share with them. So as I mentioned, the second interview is traditionally done in person, and it's generally paired with our fitness assessment. And so for out-of-state applicants, I know this is really important. We really only have one time where you would need to travel to Wisconsin, and that's for our physical fitness testing and our general panel interview. For the physical fitness testing, this is the minimum DOJ Academy entrance standards. It is required by our policy as well, our DNR Conservation Warden Fit for Duty policy, that all conservation wardens are able to pass these minimum entrance standards. The information about these entrance standards and what the agility run is, or some of the details, is all on the DOJ's website. And if you want to link to it, it's on our website. So if you once again go to our DNR website, Warden Recruitment, and you find the information about our hiring process, we'll link in there to the DOJ's website, so you can watch a video about this testing and how to prepare for it. If I'm going to give you another huge piece of advice, it's prepare for this now. Go onto the DOJ's website, watch the video, and start doing these. The vertical jump, agility runs, sit-ups, push-ups, the runs. Make sure you can accomplish them in the order that they're conducted, and that you can do some with proper form. Once we get towards this portion of the the hiring process, we will provide additional information. We'll provide, just a little what to expect, what to bring, a waiver to sign, those sorts of things. But I can really not stress enough that this portion of our process is a pass-fail. So you could rock our interview. You could do great. You could be the top candidate in our panel interview. But if you do not pass our physical fitness testing, even if it's missing by one sit-up in a minute, unfortunately, it's a pass-fail. So you're going to be out of the process. And I know that's difficult, but that's why, I want to get this information to everybody now and just let you know, practice, make sure you got this, because this is the one portion of our process, which is, in addition to the yes, no questions at the very beginning, this is it's a pass fail test. So we can answer more questions about that a little bit later. But that is our fitness process. And once again, go to our website for a little bit more information.
Great, thanks, Kara. So moving on, the next stage in our hiring process, after the ones Kara just touched on, would be our background investigation. And for those of you who haven't heard of a background investigation before, essentially what this is it's something that certainly all law enforcement agencies conduct, and other employers as well. But we want to come to understand very thoroughly who you are as a person, and what you've done in the past, good and bad, that kind of makes you who you are. And so we, obviously to entrust someone to enforce laws, to have a badge, to wear police equipment and carry a gun, we need to make sure that they are qualified, that they're an upstanding citizen, that they're professional and respectful, and that they're truly a good fit to be a public servant. And so through this process, we'll kick that process off, I should say, by having you complete a background questionnaire. You'll include lots of information about your history, whether it's your educational history, past roommates, instructors, family members, old bosses from past jobs that you've had, old coworkers. We want to get to know who you are. We need to know who these other people in your life, that you've interacted with over the past many years are. And so you'll submit that background questionnaire to the DNR, and you'll be assigned a DNR background investigator. It will most likely be another conservation warden that currently works for us and that is trained as a background investigator. And they will meet with you. They'll go over the background investigation information with you so you have a thorough understanding of it. And then they're going to start to do their research. They're going to talk to people from your life. They're going to talk to those past coworkers, those family members, friends, classmates, things like that. And they're going to get a sense of who you are and how you've treated people over your life, the mistakes you've made, the achievements you've had. We really want to know everything about you. And so while that can seem a bit invasive, it's critical that we hire people that are of sound character and that have shown, they're seeking self-improvement, they make good decisions, and that they can uphold the law and treat people with respect and protect the rights of all the people that we serve. And so, honesty is the critical component of the background investigation. I can't stress that enough. We want you to be honest in what you tell us about your past. We know that most people are not perfect. They have made mistakes before. Maybe you got a speeding ticket in the past. Maybe you had a bad relationship with someone in the past. But what we want to understand is, are you making good life decisions, both in the past and now? Have you shown that you have put yourself on a positive course? If at one point in your life you did make a mistake, have you since learned from that and improved and changed so that you don't make that mistake again? And so we want you to be honest up front about your history, about your life. And that's what's most critical. If we realize that you haven't been honest about something in your past, that's going to cause us some concern in the hiring process. But if you're upfront about your past, regardless of what that might look like, you're more likely to be successful in our process. Because again, we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for people that seek improvement, that show that they learn from their mistakes, and that can uphold those values of our warden team and of the greater DNR. So, that's a critical step in our process.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I can't emphasize that enough. And obviously, as I previously mentioned, after the background investigation, we do review all those background investigation summaries and then provide conditional offers at that time. I know that's not a slide here, but part of that conditional offer is the ability to pass our medical, our psych evaluations, and we also check to make sure you have all of our recreational safety certificates, ATV, boat, and snowmobile. So those will also be listed in the job announcement if you have concerns. They're listed on our website as well, and reach out to us if you have concerns about any of those conditions of a conditional offer. So once you are, pass all our conditions and you're issued an appointment letter, you then start at our Law Enforcement Academy. And so traditionally, we run every year a 720-hour law enforcement academy here at the DNR. This academy is the Department of Justice. I might have slipped up and said DOJ. So for those of you that don't know what that is, it's Department of Justice. It's the same law enforcement academy that is run at all the technical schools across the state, but we run it in-house. So if you do not come to us with a law enforcement academy, we do put you in one. And so that is 720 hours long. It's about 6 months, I would say, of time, 5 months of time. And then you also go into field training. As it shows here, we have some post-academy training, which would be all the specialized training. So I think people are often a little intimidated by conservation wardens because we do a lot. We know so much. We enforce so many laws, and it can be very intimidating. But what I'm here to tell you is that you don't have to be an expert fisherman in order to be a conservation warden. You don't have to have intimate knowledge in every area that we enforce in order to apply to be a conservation warden. Yes, we will train you in the law enforcement tactics, which I'll get into in the next slide, but we will also have DNR specific training, which will help train you in some of those other areas. I will note though that obviously if you come with past experience, recreating outdoors, whether that's in areas that we enforce, or maybe, you're just really passionate, you love, going to some of our state park properties and you visited every single one, or whatever the case is, if you have a niche and you're passionate in the outdoors, that's going to benefit you. In addition, once you kind of come into the fold, it will probably benefit you to go out and explore some of those other areas where you're unfamiliar with. So that's why John was talking about kind of that willingness to learn, that going into areas that are maybe uncomfortable for you and learning about them and kind of pushing yourself a little bit outside your comfort zone. All that's going to be important because when I came to this position, I knew nothing about trapping. And certainly we have a specialized training week that will teach you about trapping, but I also had to kind of make myself vulnerable and say, I don't know a whole lot about it. Have another warden help train me up a little bit when it comes to trapping and trapping laws. And so that's maybe just one example, but there's all sorts of other ones out there. So please don't feel intimidated that you don't know very specific laws. We can train you on a lot of that. So once you do get to the DNR Academy, you will also go to 3 field training assignments. That's basically on the job training where you work with a warden. You'll have your field station assignment, and then we continue your training throughout your 2-year probationary period. And we do some more advanced skills that second year, such as hunting incident training and that sort of thing. I do want to note that this past year, we started with an accelerated academy. We are hopeful that we're going to hold another accelerated academy this upcoming year, meaning that depending on your specific background, and I'm not going to make any sort of blanket statements right now, but if you come to us with already have gone through a law enforcement academy, you have maybe previous law enforcement experience, there's a potential that we can start you or just have you attend a 6 to 8 week accelerated kind of DNR introduction to the DNR and conservation warden crash course, as opposed to attending our entire 720-hour law enforcement academy. So with that, I'll just touch base on what is included in that law enforcement academy, because likely that's going to be a lot of people who are looking at this, they may not know, or if you haven't considered it before. Our law enforcement academy curriculum is exactly the same, as I mentioned, in all the other tech schools across, or technical colleges across the state who do law enforcement academies. We talk about, the laws, people's rights, what we can and can't do, how we police today in America, how you communicate those tactical skills, professional communications, defense and arrest tactics, firearms, driving, vehicle contacts, all those things, basic medical skills, report writing, those are all taught in our academy. Some of it, obviously, we need to start with classroom stuff. Then we move into doing some actual hands-on training in person and scenario-based training, but we do have written tests sprinkled throughout our academy as well. So that's just kind of a very brief basic touch on our law enforcement academy and what that contains.
Great, thanks, Kara. And I'll just add, piggybacking on that academy discussion, a few benefits to keep in mind is that the Department of Natural Resources in Wisconsin, we will pay you to go through our academy. And so that is somewhat unique in that there are many law enforcement agencies around the state who expect you to already have gone through an academy at cost to yourself. We will pay you to go through our training academy as a staff member, as a full-time staff member, or a limited term employee. And so that's a unique benefit to our training program. Now, moving into the field training assignments that Kara touched on briefly, she mentioned, after you graduate from the academy, that 5 to 6 month period typically, you will be assigned to several different field training officers, and they serve as mentors to you. They are more experienced wardens who have been on the job for longer, and they will work with you one-on-one out in the real world, out making contacts with the public, giving presentations, and making enforcement contacts as well, conducting investigations. And they will mentor you and teach you and evaluate you through that process. And what they're looking for is we want to see progress in your skills, because we know that right out of the academy, you are not fully prepared to be a conservation warden yet. You need to get the real world experience under your belt. And so that's what they're going to provide you. You'll likely be sent to several locations throughout the state for those field training assignments. So that will take you away from home potentially for some time. The state DNR will cover your housing and meal expenses during that time. But you oftentimes will be assigned to work 6 weeks with a field training officer that might work, up north, or they might work down in the southeastern part of the state. They might work in the big city or out in rural Wisconsin. And so you'll get experience kind of seeing how conservations operate in those different environments and the different issues and community connections that they encounter. And so we give people a really great experience in the field training process. Again, you got to be eager to learn and absorb new things and try them out. Be willing to make mistakes and learn from them. But it's a great training program, and we have a great team of staff who will help you through that. I think I touched on pretty much everything in that slide, but really, again, we want to help you be successful. So we need you to, show initiative and make an effort during that process. But that's really where you prove yourself as a conservation warden out there serving the public. So moving on, as you work through our field training program after the academy, you will have some specialized trainings that will bring you back together as a group. So your recruit class that you attend the academy with will go all their separate ways for field training assignments, and they'll get back together every month or two for multi-day trainings that focus on specialized skills. That might be boat operation, environmental enforcement and sampling, hunting incident training, other types of specialized enforcement work that we do where you need kind of specialized focused training for several days or for a week to really get hands-on and repetitive experience with those topics. So again, we ask a lot of conservation wardens, but we provide a lot of training to give you the skills that you're going to need to be successful. And then, you'll be, after you get done with field training, if you're successful in that process, which most people are, you will then be assigned to your first station. And that is where you will have your own vehicle, your computer, your cell phone, and you will start working on your own. You'll be assigned to a warden team. You'll have a warden supervisor who oversees your day-to-day duties, but you'll be part of a larger team of wardens that focuses on several counties typically. So you'll be assigned part or all of a county in Wisconsin as kind of your administrative area, but you'll continue to learn because you'll be, out on your own for the first time. You'll have to meet lots of your community members, partner organizations, and other DNR staff members to build relationships and what we call building your program within your area to kind of make this successful warden program that you're going to carry with you throughout your career. And so that first year out in the field is certainly a big step for everyone, but it's exciting. You've been through the training, you've been through the academy, you've been through the field training process, and now you get to go out and actually do the public service that you signed up to do. I think I've touched on pretty much everything in regards to that slide, but it's an exciting process. It goes quickly. So I know on paper in these presentations, it might sound like, oh my gosh, I'm going to spend a year in training and then I'm going to be out on my own. That sounds like a lot of time, but it goes quickly. You have fun and you learn a lot in the process. You make some great friends and partnerships along the way. So to wrap up, we do anticipate opening our conservation warden hiring process very soon, within the next week or two, most likely. And so, as Kara mentioned, we want you to be aware of that. We want you to be checking our website to see when that announcement goes live. Could be as early as next week. And so please be checking up on that. Sign up for our warden recruitment updates on our website. You can sign up for our newsletter and updates. There's the website there on your screen. And we hope to see your application as we start to review them. So we're really excited to bring on a new team.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I think that's all I have from my seat as well. So Katie, I know that you've maybe received a few questions. We'll be happy to answer those.
Yeah, let's take a look here. You guys answered a lot of them. For everyone listening, if we don't get to your question live tonight, we will be reaching out via email, so just stay tuned there. With regard, and I think you kind of touched on this, but with regard to the physical fitness testing and the interviews, right now, how many times are you anticipating that anyone who is interested in this process who lives out of state would need to come to Wisconsin and be physically here to take part in that process?
Yeah, so we have really tried to focus and condense our process down so that it minimizes that amount of travel. So right now, as it stands, it should really be only one trip to Wisconsin for the interviews and the fitness testing, which occur over the same week. So there'll be a sign up that'll come out for that if you move to that phase. And it should really only be one time until you get to the conditional offer phase. If you're issued a conditional offer, you obviously need to come to Wisconsin to meet all those conditions, such as a medical exam, psychological exam, that sort of thing.
And are there any options to do that physical fitness testing remote somehow through some other organization or anything like that if you are absolutely unable to come to Wisconsin at that time?
At this time, no, we do not, but I'll put a caveat on that. So there's really no method or way that we can have you take the physical fitness assessment with somebody else. So it needs to be done with us. That being said, every year we have applicants who something crazy comes up and they can't, do last year. COVID was a great example. So maybe it just didn't work out where, they couldn't attend in person and we had to accommodate with a Skype interview and then a fitness test later on. That would be an exception to that. But I would say if you have concerns about coming for that time frame, still apply, go direct with me or our new recruiting manager, and we will most definitely try to make accommodations in individual circumstances if possible.
Great. And how about with this particular hiring here within the next couple of weeks? Is this only for the LTE position or the FTE position, or can you apply at once for both of those at the same time?
Yes, you can apply for both of them at the same time. So I know it sounds a little goofy and people sometimes get confused, but essentially, if you're at all interested as a career as a conservation warden, whether that's full-time or part-time or both, put in your application. As we get towards the end of the process and we're doing the background investigations and selecting people for conditional offers, once again, if we're able to provide station-specific conditional offers, we'll have to have those communications closer to that end of August, early September timeframe. But at that time, if we give you a conditional offer, we'll let you know if it's either for full-time or for part-time. But please use this process to apply for both.
Perfect. And can you talk a little bit more about the changes to the college credits that you need? Does it make it any easier for college students to apply if someone's currently in school and has another year to reach the required credits? Do you guys work with them to make sure they get through that coursework, or how does that work?
Sure. So we did previously, so last year, require 60 college credits upon application. So if you do not yet have 60 college credits, or maybe you have no credits, you still are able to apply. The requirement, and this will be written in your appointment letter if you were selected, is it will say right in there, within 5 years of your start date, you need to obtain 60 college credits. So if you have some credits, but not all of them, or no credits, you have 5 years to obtain those. I will note that the first year, as we kind of went over, is a really crazy time. You're doing a lot of learning, you're doing a lot of training, and it requires a lot of concentrated effort. So some applicants may be able to continue school during that training process, but I would also encourage people to focus on the job at hand. And then you do have 5 full years to achieve those credits. And so you could then take time after your training phase to obtain those credits after school, or, at part-time virtual, whatever the case may be. We will work with you to make sure you have time to obtain those credits. After that first year kind of training, you'll work with your new supervisor to do that. And I'll add a caveat too, that going through the law enforcement academy with us actually does provide some credits towards that goal. So they're not considered accredited college credits, but they would go towards that 60 college credits in our Department of Justice minimum standard. So that's something to keep in mind, that may benefit you as well.
Fantastic. And I think you
piggyback on that, if you sorry
yeah.
about that. I'll just piggyback to mention, so those 60 college credits, if you don't have them at the time that you're hired, but you meet them within 5 years, you earn those credits, like Kara mentioned. You most likely will have to attend. You will have to attend that schooling and pay for that schooling yourself. And so that 60 college credits that you may seek to earn after you're hired on, while there are opportunities at times for the DNR to help offset the cost of that, don't assume that those credits will be paid for by the DNR, free to earn. So it'll either something you'll have to do on your off time when you're not conducting your conservation warden duties, and it's something you may have to cover the cost of yourself. Now, you'll certainly be employed with us at that time, so you'll be earning a wage, and you'll have a somewhat flexible schedule at times to do that. But just keep that in mind, that we are not necessarily funding your college credits if you do not come in with them. We'll work through that on a case-by-case basis when and where budgets allow. But on a positive note as well, I just want to mention, I touched earlier on, there is no specific topic of study or degree requirement that you have to be hired with the DNR. So whether you're coming in with college credits or you're going to earn them after you get hired, there is no specific major or course of study that you have to have. So you could have studied teaching, journalism, criminal justice, environmental science, biology, and any number of other courses and majors that colleges offer. So don't feel that there is one path or one major that you need to focus on. You can really study what you are most interested in and still find success.
Awesome. And I think we have time for one more question. Going to throw one out there that we've gotten a couple of times, just hoping to kind of clarify where several people have been a little confused. So just to be clear, that the written essay responses that you mentioned at the top, those are happening in lieu of or in addition to a cover letter and resume?
In lieu of. So you will not, at the initial application, will not need to submit a cover letter resume. It will only be the short answer questions. But I'll throw a caveat in there that it is a requirement at some point in the process. We do collect your resume. So a resume will be required potentially with the background phase. But for the initial application, only need the short answer questions. And I do also, as we were mentioning, changes to processes. I want to throw this in there. I had missed it in my notes. Previously, the DNR had required a swimming component as part of our fitness during the hiring process. That swimming requirement is still a requirement for people to meet within 1 year of their onboarding date. It's part of our fit for duty policy that you meet a minimum swimming standard because we spend so much time on the water. But I don't want that to scare people away from applying, simply because we know swimming is something we can teach. And actually, it's something we build in swim lessons to our academy if that's a skill set that you need. So we'll, once again, as John mentioned, thank you. We'll pay for your time at the academy. We're paying for your expenses to be there. And we will pay for your training if you need it, including in the swimming area. So thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, everyone who is here joining us. Like I said, we will take a look at these questions. If we didn't get your question answered, we will be reaching out to you to get you some more information via email. If any additional questions do come up, you can send them to DNRLE Recruitment recruitment@wisconsin.gov. Again, that's DNR recruitment@wisconsin.gov. Also, watch your inboxes tomorrow. We will send a quick email with a link to this replay on webinar, or excuse me, the replay on YouTube. If you would like to watch that replay, and we'll include that email there as well, so you can reach out with additional questions. So with that, thank you guys for joining us, and have a great evening.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.